Ever since I was a child and I saw Back to the Future for the very first time, I've always longed for the day when I would get my hands on a real hoverboard. I know I'm not the only one here who feels the same way, and so the next best thing from having a real life hoverboard is surely one which makes its way into a video game. When Airboarder 64 was first announced, like many people, I couldn't wait to play it, as the concept alone left me itching to play this promising in development game. So for the months went by and gradually information about the game slipped out, and it was shown off at E3. Developed by ASCII Entertainment, Airboarder 64 stunned early previewers, but for all the wrong reasons. Those who saw it at E3 in 1998 noted how awful the game's visuals were, citing a lack of texture quality and blurriness which they hadn't seen on the console in a long time. They also hated the terrible controls and real lack of gameplay depth. So it was no surprise then that the game was panned on its Japanese and European launches, and it went into hiding for a very long time. Months went by and the game still appeared on pre-order lists in North America, but a release date never materialised. I hoped that with such long wait, the game had gone back into development and the problems had been ironed out. Sadly though, in late 2000 the publisher cancelled the North American release and the game was finally put to rest and Airboarder 64 was dead. IGN however took the opportunity to give the game a fitting obituary, describing the now dead project as one of the poorest Nintendo 64 games and finishing off their article by saying, "Be gone now, foul beast." So with the game only coming out in Europe and Japan, we are left to review this awful game with perhaps the most hilarious and hideous letterboxing ever seen on the console. The concept of the game is pretty simple and it looks good on paper. In the future, snowboarding and skateboarding have been replaced by the now hippest sport around, airboarding. Players are all competing for the coveted title of Master Airboarding, and you pick one of 8 characters to work your way towards that title. There are also different game modes which include Street Mode, where you perform tricks to gain points and unlock extra levels. There's a Practice Mode to learn the basics, a Time Attack Mode, and a Free Run Mode for you to learn the new areas and the best parts of the levels. There is also a 2-player mode which allows you to ruin someone else's day by making them play this with you. Add to this a coin collect mode and you have a game that does appear to have quite a few modes for you to master. One unique selling point of the game is the ability to ride your board vertically up buildings and along walls. It sounds great, but the execution is poor, and when combined with the poor mechanics of the game, it really makes this rather difficult. The level design is also atrocious. Aside from the basic looking skate park and cityscapes, you'll even find yourself in a weird world which is like a giant toy room. It's a novel idea, but it has no place in this game which attempts to take itself quite seriously. The design means that if you're expecting long flowing combos and chains like you've seen in Tony Hawk, then you'll be sadly mistaken. It seems that trying to link anything at all together is quickly greeted by a wall, or your character will clip and get stuck on the environment. The frame rate is also unforgivable. If you look at the speedometer on screen, it will tell you that you're travelling at hundreds of kilometers per hour. Sadly, it feels about as fast as standing on a surfboard in the middle of Times Square. F-Zero X showed that you have fantastic frame rates and people will forgive poor visuals. Sadly, the game has a poor frame rate and even worse visuals. Everything is ultra low quality from the buildings to the lighting effects, and the terrible draw distance just makes things feel worse. This is one of the worst looking excuses of a game on the system by a long way. You'd have thought that this game couldn't be any worse, but just pick up a controller and try to play this. It feels like you're trying to drive a Bugatti Veyron on ice with a few magnums of Bollinger flowing through your veins. Every slight touch on the analog stick skids your character all over the place, and trying to pull off tricks is ridiculously hard. This is a game which makes Superman 64 feel like Super Mario 64. My friend Shane over at Rerez has a series called Positives, where he tries to pick out positives in games which are generally strongly disliked. He could play this game for years, and I think he would struggle to make a 30-second long video out of this. I make a point of not telling you if you should or shouldn't play a game whenever I do my reviews, because after all, everyone's opinions are always going to be different. But in this case, I'm confident enough to say that you will not enjoy this game. It's just awful. So for today's discussion, I want to know what you think the worst N64 game of all time is. Are you in the Superman 64 camp, or do you have any others in mind to help steer others away from? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time.